Springfield's Talk 1041, and a good Wednesday, everyone. Hope you're all doing just fine on this fantastic middle of the week day, a couple days away from Friday. And we'll be broadcasting live from Scramblers Friday Road Show. We do on Fridays out there. Love for you to come out and join us. You know, I think I've made it.
Oh, yeah?
I'm going to be judging this mac and cheese
I
thing.
heard.
That's
Wow.
right.
Look at you.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Honestly, I feel like you're the perfect fit for this.
In April it'll be 16 years at I've been on KSGF doing mornings, and I think I've made it. You know how it all came about?
How?
Well, one of our account executives that handles, I don't even know what the organization's for. I don't know exactly what this is for. I just know that this annual mac and cheese competition happens. I think it's at the convention center on Saturday. And sent out a mass email asking if anyone wanted to be a judge. So quite an honor to be the one person that's like, I'll do it.
Okay.
I just, I think that really, in my mind, when you start showing up and you're judging these big food competitions, that's how you made it. That's how I always knew, Tom Turton had made it. He's doing, or at one point, it seemed like he was on every panel that did, the pizza judging and cashew chicken judging, in my mind anyway.
It's going to be at the convention center, you say?
I think so. Yes. Yeah.
Maybe this is a roundabout way that the city is getting involved, trying to get you on their team.
Maybe.
You're going to come out of that mac and cheese fest being like, you know what? We need
That's right.
a brand new convention center.
That's right. I'm going to turn around on this thing. I actually did do a judging 2 years in a row with Tom Turton.
Oh, did you?
Yes, it was this event put on by a business networking organization. What was the business? It was they called it the Mob. I forget, but it was a networking thing where these, if you had a business and you get together so often, and they had, it was around the first of the year, it was the Soup Bowl, and it was a soup competition.
Oh, I see what they did there.
Yeah, I know, it's very clever. I don't know if it's still done or not, but yeah, so I did that for a couple of years. That was a decade ago, something like that, and so this is the first opportunity I've had, and I just felt like it's really big news in my life.
Yeah, I feel like the door has officially been opened.
Yeah, it has. I mean, what invitations that are open to anyone that I can accept to be a judge for some competition will come next?
My favorite part about this whole thing was yesterday there was an internal email sent out, and our staff was just very excited that you were a judge. Like, just everybody was so happy. Did you see all the little cheer reactions?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I did not, but actually, I'll tell you, I saw that email, and one of the individuals that responded to the email, it started with Hemi, I think, if I remember right, we're on KT talking about how there were passes if anyone wanted to go.
Yes.
And then Beth, who handles that account, responded to all, and, our very own Nick Reed is going to be a judge. I interpreted that as her way of reminding me that was something I committed to. In case I forgot. That is 100%. I thought, I know, I haven't forgotten. That was my interpretation
You're
of
like,
that.
I've been waiting for this for weeks.
Yeah. You have no idea how empty my life is. You don't have to remind me.
This is the highlight of the year.
Yes, already. And it's not even, January's not even over. I mean, it's just it's coasting from here at this point. As expected, Bill Clinton defied the congressional subpoena yesterday, the same move that landed Steve Bannon in jail, and I'm sure he had to pay some sort of massive fine as well. He, of course, is a Republican, whereas Bill Clinton is a Democrat. So we are going to see if Bill Clinton is held to the same standard as a citizen who is a Republican, or if he is going to be treated like somebody who is above the law. Now, Hillary Clinton's opportunity to also defy the subpoena today is going to occur, and I'm sure that she will also defy it. We'll get you filled in on what the next steps for that is. A lot of, just a lot of developing issues occurring over the last 24 hours. These arguments before the Supreme Court in an effort to protect women from becoming second-class citizens, even further than the Democrats have already made them with the transgender debate and forcing them to compete against men and boys if men and boys say so. And the arguments, it's embarrassing for a society that is supposed to be intellectual. You would think the Supreme Court, like you look at our country, our culture, and you think, okay, well, surely the Supreme Court is going to be populated with the most intelligent individuals. And then you get Jackson Brown, Ketanji, or whatever her name is, Jackson Brown, who should be disqualified from this case because during her confirmation hearings declared that she did not even know what the difference between a man and a woman were because she wasn't a biologist, so she wasn't qualified. Yet she's going to make a Supreme Court decision regarding men and women. How do you do that? Some of the arguments being made, it is embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing. These people are morons. And every culture and every society have morons. The problem is as long as you are on the left, you get elevated. The more moronic you are, the more celebrated you are, the more praised you are, and the greater advancement to your career. Just look at Kamala Harris. Look at Joe Biden. Look at Tim Walz. Who, by the way, articles of impeachment in Minnesota have been filed regarding Tim Walz. We'll cover some of that. And, of course, Donald Trump giving the finger. Did you see that story?
I did see that.
There is so much going on right now. I don't think that the left is going to go apoplectic over it. I almost wish that there was a vacuum of substantial news just to watch these foul-mouthed, vile, anti-God people on the left to suddenly clutch their pearls and faint over the fact that Donald Trump gave someone the finger. Oh my gosh, we're just falling apart. He was at some factory and some worker yelled at him and so Trump just gave him the finger and kept on walking. And I thought, you know what? You got thousands of people being slaughtered in Iran. You have the liberation of the people of Venezuela. We've got the left encouraging people to run over members of law enforcement in this country. Trump giving someone the finger. I don't even think that sort of thing's showing up on my radar any longer. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny and breezy with a temperature falling to around 35 this afternoon. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 18. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 43. And taking a look at Friday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 46.
Bill Clinton defying congressional subpoena. Comer says contempt charges moving ahead. We were talking about yesterday, and Trump was touring some factory, and someone yelled, I guess one of the workers, pedo protector or something like that. Now, this is an administration, regardless of how one feels about Pam Bondi, I think, has really botched so much of the messaging on this. And Trump has made comments that, in an inarticulate way, have allowed Democrats to seize on the opportunity to falsely accuse him of trying to cover some of this Epstein stuff up, when his administration, on numerous occasions, his Department of Justice, have gone to judge after judge, attempting over and over again to get grand jury testimony revealed, to get much of this stuff revealed, but judges, specifically Obama judge, has blocked him from doing so. They have turned over to Congress tens of thousands of pages, I think 30 or 40,000 pages of this stuff. Yet they continue to get accused of trying to cover this stuff up. And I know there's, the redacting, and I get all of that. I understand it, but it's just so exhaustingly stupid, particularly given that on the same day you have some left-wing nut accusing Donald Trump of trying to hide something with Jeffrey Epstein, on the same day that Bill Clinton just refused defying a subpoena to testify regarding what he knew about Jeffrey Epstein. Now, where are all of you left-wingers talking about cover-up? Where is the commentary on television? I don't sit and have the ability to watch every single network 24 hours a day, but I haven't seen a tremendous amount of discussion about the fact that Bill Clinton, the guy who, we know was dozens and dozens of times on Pedo One, he still claims he didn't visit the island, but in many of the witness testimony of some of the victims for the civil cases, there was testimony that some of these girls, there was one in particular, that they saw Bill Clinton there. When Epstein's, and this was some time ago, his little book of phone numbers was discovered, Clinton had, it was like 22 different ways to contact him. It was like you really wanted to make sure. Now, all of those things don't necessarily mean that Bill Clinton likes to rape kids. We do know he likes the younger women. He's demonstrated that with Monica Lewinsky back in the day, so he does have an eye for such things. But, okay, that doesn't prove anything. But now that guy, who I would say in terms of high-profile individuals, there has been shown to be a much greater connection to Jeffrey Epstein than anyone else that's high-profile. He defies a subpoena. He faces potential jail time in order to not have to testify or not be questioned about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and there's not a peep about that? He's not covering something up? He's not, through his silence, demonstrating guilt? See, all of you people on the left who love to point and claim that, somehow Trump, and by the way, this is when Trump talks about all this being a hoax, this is what he's talking about. This feigned outrage, this feigned concern of justice being served by those who keep pointing to the Trump administration, who has done more than any other administration to hold people accountable to a large lack of success, criminally speaking. This ball got rolling because of the first Trump administration. And the hoax being the fact that Democrats pretending as if this is something that has got to be of great concern to Republicans in the Trump administration, and he's the one clearly covering something up, yet their guy, old Bill Clinton, faces potential jail time. That apparently is how concerned he is about having to answer questions about his relationship with Epstein, and today's Hillary Clinton's opportunity to do the same thing. And the fact that the media is silent on this, I mean, sure, a little story here and there. That is when Trump talks about hoax. That's the stuff he's talking about. The narrative of all of this is one giant hoax. So Clinton was subpoenaed, defied it. Comer said yesterday morning, we will move next week in the House oversight to hold Bill Clinton in contempt of Congress. He went on to say, I think everyone knows by now Bill Clinton did not show up, and I think it's important to note that this subpoena was voted on in a bipartisan manner by this committee. No one's accusing Bill Clinton of any wrongdoing. We just have questions, and that's why the Democrats voted along with Republicans to not subpoena Bill Clinton. Now, for better or worse, this is a demonstration of the difference between Republicans and Democrats, and for a lot of Republican voters, the source of aggravation. If this were the other way around, see, James Comer, his position on this is, hey, we're not saying he did anything wrong. We just want to chat with the guy. Democrats would have said this is proof that Donald Trump is covering up for Jeffrey Epstein. This is proof that Donald Trump must know something that he feels could implicate him, perhaps even criminally. And admittedly, James Comer is taking the ethical, honest, diplomatic, and moral approach, which is something Democrats recoil from. But at the same time, it is a source of aggravation for a lot of Republicans. He noted that not a single Democrat showed up to the deposition on Tuesday. Well, of course, because they knew Clinton wasn't going to show up. What's the point? They didn't need to defend him. So what apparently will happen now is this, as he noted, there'll be, I guess, a vote in committee to move forward on not censorship, but contempt of Congress. And generally speaking, when there is a vote of contempt of Congress, it gets referred for criminal proceedings. This is what happened to Steve Bannon and why he ended up going to jail. I suspect that there will be enough Republicans, if it gets to that point, that will cross the aisle and side with Democrats in order to protect Bill Clinton. I may be proven wrong. But apparently, next week we may learn whether that is the path that, and same thing with Hillary Clinton, because she's going to defy that subpoena today. I can guarantee you that. And part of the reason is because they have a blanket of security that they will not be held accountable. And frankly, that is a blanket of security that they've earned. If you were individuals that pulled off as much as they have and you have constantly gotten away with it, constantly been defended, would you feel like you needed to worry about defying a subpoena? Of course not. Culture of corruption. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. The Biden administration had all the Epstein stuff for years. If there had been something, they would have revealed it. And we know this. And I almost, I don't hate talking about it, but it's because of this ongoing nature of dishonesty regarding it. And of course, Clinton defying the subpoena to answer questions, and Hillary Clinton will also defy that subpoena. And what it is, will they be held accountable for that? The same way that an average citizen would, the same way that Steve Bannon was. And I suspect that there will be enough Republicans, as I mentioned, that side with Democrats. And some of them will do it because they'll feel, well, it'll just look like, we're trying to go after political opposition. Well, that is a weapon that the left constantly uses. Republicans' fear of looking bad. And that has caused that corruption to foster. I remember that there was a moment, and I remember when it sparked in my mind years ago, and listening to, and I tell you, it was Hannity. He was talking about the double standard. And it suddenly struck me that double standard takes two sides of the coin. While some of the double standard is, at least in the moment, out of the hands of Republicans. So when you have judges that are left-wing judges that treat a Republican one way and a Democrat another way outside of potential jurisdiction of Congress to impeach, there's really nothing short-term that can be done. But when it comes to hearings, when it comes to these areas in which Republicans can hold Democrats accountable, they choose not to. Well, then Republicans, it takes two sides to create a double standard oftentimes. And it just hit me. I remember that day. It wasn't of anything in particular, because I, like so many of you, had long been frustrated with the double standard. And then I realized, well, wait a minute, a lot of this double standard is because of Republicans. They participate in it willingly. Another text that came in noted that if Republicans, once again, when they have the power to hold Democrats to the same standard as Republicans, if they don't, they will pay for it at the ballot box. And I do fear that it will potentially have an impact overall. And by that I mean, I don't necessarily believe that people are going to vote in the midterm for Democrats because Republicans don't hold Democrats accountable when they have the opportunity to, or Republicans will just refuse to go out and vote. But it does add to the belief a lot of Trump supporters have. What's the point? What difference does it make? When Republicans are in charge and Democrats demonstrate their brazen violation of the law, and Republicans, when they have the ability to do something about it, don't, what's the point? What difference does it make? And so it takes away any potential motivation that those Trump supporters, Republicans, desperately need in the midterms in order to keep control. It just saps that motivation away from them. In fact, it's even more than that in some instances. It creates this great deal of aggravation, to put it mildly, that they have towards Republicans. And this will just be another spoke in that wheel of relative indifference that a lot of Trump voters will have when it comes to the need that Republicans will be out there campaigning on to keep them in power. Going to get a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies. It'll be breezy as well, with the temperature falling to around 35 this afternoon. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 18. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 43. And for Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
All right. State of the state took place yesterday, and this is where Governor Mike Kehoe gets up and talks to all the lawmakers, and here's what's going on, here's my agenda. Now, generally these things are, of course, they're very boring. The only, to the general public, doesn't mean it's not important, but it is. It's boring. Did you watch it? No, of course you didn't watch it. Did you even know it was occurring? Probably not. Some of you, if you're really, really into this stuff, maybe you did. The only similar event that is even more boring is the State of the City address that gets done by different cities. Springfield does it. Again, doesn't mean that it's not important or significant, particularly to certain organizations and groups and folks in the city. But just to the general public, you're like, what? The governor talked about a number of different agenda items that he has on his little listing. And one of them, I suspect I have a much different perspective on than a lot of other people. And I'm going to throw it out there for you. He talked about fulfilling one of his campaign promises, the elimination of the state income tax. Well, that sounds positive, right? And the proposed plan would be to phase it out and replace it with an expanded sales tax. And there's a lot of positive arguments in favor of that. But here's the catch. He announced that that the first step would be asking the voters if they want it done. My interpretation of this is it's a way to kill this thing off. It's a way to make sure that it does not happen. Now, you may think, well, why would this kill it off? When it comes to this particular issue, people can be very irrational and very, very susceptible to fear. And what occurs is the opposition comes out and convinces people that this is actually going to result in you paying more taxes. The door that opens to that is the recognition that the tax burden shift will go to sales taxes. Now, without getting too far in the weeds here, one of the arguments in favor of that is you have all of these people that travel through Missouri that buy things, then they will be sharing a burden of the taxes that right now are solely on the backs of people who work in Missouri. So all of that state income tax amount instead will be spread out where, yeah, you'll still pay a portion of it, but so will anyone and everyone who buys something in Missouri. Now, there's a lot of caveats to that, and there's a lot of back and forth. But the caveats and the back and forth take a great deal, oftentimes, of attention to recognize and to understand. What doesn't is the threat of they're just going to jack up your sales tax and you're going to pay even more taxes than before. Oh, my God, it's going to cost so much to go to the grocery store, and that scares people. Number one, people on the left will vote against it because it's a Republican proposal. A lot of people in the middle that just like to hear things that make them feel good, this will scare them. And a lot of people who are opposed to high taxes will also be concerned about this. Putting this, and I know They have to know this. They know this. And that's why I believe this is a way to kill it. This is a way to pretend, and this was part of the campaign, that this is something that he would do. But at the same time, it's heavy lifting, and it can be messy. And you have a lot of special interest groups out there that do not want this to be eliminated. And let's just be honest, when it comes to doing bold things, Missouri is lukewarm. Missouri is not bold. Missouri is not run by people, while there may be state lawmakers that do want to do bold things and really swing for the fences. Missouri is mediocre in terms of leadership. It has been for quite some time. This is why every time you see the map of where people are moving to and where they're moving from, Missouri does not get discussed. We're mediocre. In fact, U-Haul came out, they do that listing of states that people are moving from and where they're moving to. And of course, you get the same tops and bottoms. They're always moving away from Democrat states, Democrat strongholds, and they're all, as usual, Florida and Texas are the top two states. And and I looked it up. Missouri was like 25, 26, right in the middle. Bland, mediocre, no boldness. And the political clout and the fight that comes along with the elimination of a state income tax takes those personality traits. And the leadership in this state does not have it. So this is a way to kill it, in my opinion. Either that, or this is such a boneheaded political miscalculation that is completely unnecessary. And by the way, if you put it to a vote of the people, that's going to cost a tremendous amount of money. Unless just amazingly they have some sort of internal polling that they've done that shows, 70% of people would vote for this, no matter how much anti-income tax elimination propaganda there is, that still the people are for it. But even if that's the case, then why do you have to put it to a vote? You have the people on your side. There's no reason to do this other than to have a reason to duck away from it. When you get some vote where 60% of Missourians say they're opposed to this, well, we're listening to the people. I was so skeptical when the election was going on, because I talked about my skepticism, and the Mike Kehoe campaign saying, this was going to be something he was going to do. If he got elected governor, he would eliminate the state income tax. He would lead the state in doing this. This is not leading. Saying, well, we'll let the people vote on this, knowing full well in all likelihood what that outcome will mean. I was so skeptical when the campaign ads were running, and I talked about this on air, which is why I'm talking about it again. I reached out to the campaign saying, is this really something that candidate Kehoe, as lieutenant governor, he's out there claiming that he will do? Yep, top priority. Really doesn't sound like a top priority. Well, we'll do it if after we put it to a vote, people say they want it. My assessment is this is a way to torpedo it, to make it appear as if it's something we really wanted to do, really was a priority, but we got to listen to the people. Because I guarantee you, and many of you know how this works, if this does go to a vote, which would be an advisory vote, is always just want to get a gauge of what the people want, the anti-state income tax folks will outspend at least 20-1 in advertising those who want to have it eliminated. And that advertising, through disinformation and fear tactics, will pay off handsomely. Guarantee you. This is all, in my assessment, theater to make this go away. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that there are lawmakers that do want drastic change, whether it's just, fair tax or the elimination of state income tax in some other form, that really do want this to happen. I just think that this is leadership's way of shutting them down and making sure it doesn't. Now, I'm going to give you another bit of evidence as to why I believe that. Coming up, first, a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Ozarks elder law. I was just having a conversation with my mom yesterday, in fact, about the Joplin location there of the 10 area locations. And she had mentioned she had been listening online when Lori Rook joined us on Friday and talking about something that Lori had talked about that she had never even thought about before. And that's one of the key components that I can't stress enough about Ozarks elder law is you and I, for the most part, we don't know everything we don't know about these moments in life or death or becoming senior citizens, decision making for ourselves, for others, that oftentimes we learn about the way to protect ourselves after it's too late. We have some scenario pop up like, oh gosh, I better get an attorney for this. Ozarks elder law, like, yeah, no, that needed to be done beforehand. And so that's why I recommend a free consultation, and they'll sit with you and you just kind of go over, here's what's going on. This is what I got. This is what I'm looking at. And they can say, here are the things that you need to do. And that consultation's free. And then they will give you the cost up front to, tell you to get that done, here's what it'll cost. So you don't get nickel and dime to death, and you get to make that decision for yourself. They have 10 area locations. Get that free consultation. Learn what you don't know. OzarksElderLaw.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Yesterday, during the State of the State, Governor Mike Kehoe, who campaigned on eliminating the state income taxes, said, well, I want the people to advise us as to whether to do this or not. Now, best as it sounds, this would be advisory. This isn't anything that would necessarily be legally binding. He just wants to put the question on the ballot asking voters if the state should phase out the individual income tax. Now, how detailed that question will be. Will it just be, hey, should we do it? Details to come later, or will it give very specific plans of how it is that they will move forward? I don't know, but I believe these people are not idiots, and I believe they recognize how easy it is to spread disinformation about what this would look like. And frankly, a lot of people who want lower taxes are oftentimes susceptible to that sort of disinformation or murky information. And they know that it would fail, and this is a way to kill it. Now, that's what I believe. And to that point, a number of you have texted in who clearly have concerns about higher taxes and saying this is a terrible idea because, then they just raise the sales tax and then they give exemptions and they do all the things that they currently do now anyway. But I will say this, and this is a point that I'll make when we talk in the future about the issue itself. For all of the people who have understandable concerns, because we are talking about government saying, hey, don't worry, we'll eliminate it here, but it's not going to be that bad over it. Government has certainly earned the distrust. But for those who think, well, we just don't know, what if? I will say this. Look at Texas, look at Florida. And while a lot of people will note, yes, they don't pay state income tax, but they do have higher taxes here, there. Here's what I do know. The results. Sometimes we get so lost in the yeah, but, we forget about the results. Why is it that why is it that people flee to those states? That should tell us something. Why is it if the elimination of a state income tax results in an even worse situation, do people that leave states like California and states like New York and New Jersey overwhelmingly go to those states as opposed to states like Missouri? And while, of course, we do have a lot of people in Missouri that come from California, I swear it's like everybody knows someone that moved from California, it's not nearly to the degree that states without income taxes are known destinations. There's some reason for that. And so I just, because you do have a lot of uncertainties. You do have a lot of unknowns. And it doesn't mean that suddenly Missouri would do it in a manner that mimics the exact same results, but you certainly can't claim that it inevitably is going to lead to a worse situation when the states who are in that position now are these states that people overwhelmingly choose to go to when they want a better quality of life. Now, gotta go, again, traffic, and then sort of leapfrogged here to make that point, but I want to stress another reason that I do not believe Governor Kehoe this is my assessment. I'll say this, he's not being consistent. I don't want to say genuine. I will say he is not being consistent when it comes to his suggestion that the people should be ultimately deciding the issue of the elimination of a state income tax. All right, Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe, running for governor, said it would be one of his priorities to make sure the income tax is eliminated. Yesterday, he announced he wants to put it what it sounds like would be an advisory vote to the people. I believe that it would fail because of how easy it is to frighten people into believing that this is going to end up result in even higher taxes and be bad for Missouri, though that, of course, isn't the result in other states with no income tax. But I believe that the Kehoe folks know this, and this is their way of quashing it, to say, well, we got to listen to the people on these issues. The problem with that is it is inconsistent with the way that Mike Kehoe has dealt with the issue of tax increases or tax decreases in the past. On more than one occasion, the people of Missouri voted against increasing taxes at the pump. One of the leading proponents of ignoring the people and their actual vote when it comes to the issue of taxes was Mike Kehoe. He went around the state as lieutenant governor lobbying for the increase, despite how the people voted. Now, if he had said, listen, we need those taxes, but the people have spoken, and I'm a man who believes in listening to the people when it comes to the issue of taxes, then this position of doing the same on the state income tax elimination, I'd say at least he's consistent. But the fact that he's not, I think, says a lot. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, end of the new year and fantastic opportunities from the Pinnaker family. Here's some of the Pinnaker Honda deals. One of those 26 vehicles. How about a lease? $199 a month. That's right. $199 month lease on the 26 Honda Civic Sedan LX. Looking to do any sort of purchasing, of course. You've got the 26 Honda HR-V, 2.49% APR for 48 months. 26 Honda Ridgeline, 3.99% APR, or your choice, a $1,500 sales credit. Certified Dream Deal sales event happening now with rates as low as 1.49% for select certified pre-owned vehicles. 25 Honda Pilot, 2.49 APR, or $1,500 sales credit on that, as well as the Ridgeline. And there's always the Pinnaker Advantage, 20% off routine maintenance when you purchase a vehicle from them, and 10% off routine maintenance if you purchase from one of their other locations, which is something I did. My truck came from their Republic location, Pinnaker Chevy, and then there's the Chevy Buick GMC location in Branson. So all around, Pinnaker family, incredible deals, Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. You know, I was talking in the previous segment about the revelation that apparently Governor Kehoe, who campaigned on eliminating the state income taxes, now said, well, we want to put it up to a vote of the people. And I explained why I believe that is that is an attempt to squash the whole thing and make it not happen. I just recommend, if you would like, go back and listen to the podcast if you missed any of it, though I suspect we will be talking about this again in the future. But I made the final point of the inconsistency here, and how when it came to raising our taxes at the pump, the people on numerous occasions voted against it, but he was fully supportive of ignoring the will of the people on that tax issue for the purposes of raising it. And I would just argue that actions speak louder than words and tells you who a person really is. Because when it comes to the issue of raising taxes, Kehoe's approach is, it doesn't matter what the people of Missouri say, let's do it. When it comes to the issue of lowering taxes, apparently it's, well, now we'll let the people decide. Knowing, I believe full well, that because of a number of reasons I explained in the last hour, the people will say, no, don't do it. Isn't that interesting? Because it seems as if, through that behavior, the true dedication from Mike Kehoe is to raise taxes, but not so much when it comes to promises to lower them. Of course, we're told this is a conservative administration. If that is conservative, then what do you call someone who is more dedicated to lowering taxes as opposed to raising them? What is that? Because that's the political ideology I'd like to assign to. California Governor Gavin Newsom acknowledged that the state's proposed wealth tax is bad economics. Now, this is a wealth tax that essentially says if you make a certain amount of money, we're just going to take money from you. Not income or... And by the way, not even money that you actually have. The government will just figure out how much you're worth, which I know this can be confusing to people. If you're somebody that doesn't own businesses, doesn't own assets, you're just somebody that you've got a bank account. When you think of worth, you think of how much do I have in my bank? I got $20,000 in my bank account, so that's what I'm worth. But when you're talking about people who own assets, when you're talking about people that own, businesses, corporations, that is how they calculate their worth. So you can be someone with only $20,000 of cash on hand, but if you own companies that are valued at $4 billion, that's how the government determines what you're actually worth. And that, in California, is what Democrats are proposing that you be taxed on. And it's for that reason a number of people that are wealthy, billionaires, a lot of them, they're getting out. Gavin Newsom, of course, is wanting to run for president. And this, yet again, is showing that not only middle-income people in California are fleeing, lower-income people, unfortunately, for the most part, are trapped there, so they can't flee. They're at the mercy of that form of government. But even the wealthy people that create all the jobs for the middle-income people, they are starting to leave as well. Gavin Newsom, of course, running for president, he has to have some sort of response to that. And his response apparently is, yeah, this isn't a good idea. But here's the demonstration of people like Gavin Newsom and their reliance on voters that have no ability to just have basic common sense. He said that, however, when it comes to doing the same thing on a national level, well, that's different. Now, Newsom gave an interview to Politico on the issue of people, the wealthy residents, moving money and businesses out of the state. And he said to Politico, quote, "That's my fear. It's just what I warned against. It's happening. The evidence is in. The impacts are very real, not just substantive economic impacts in terms of the revenue, but startups, the indirect impacts of people questioning long-term commitments, medium-term commitments," he continued. "That's not what we need right now at a time of so much uncertainty, quite the contrary." So he's speaking like a conservative here. Talking about higher taxes, and that's bad for not just current businesses, but startups. Who would want to come here when and start a business here when it's such an anti-business environment? I've been warning them about this. He says, however, that when it comes to doing this on a national level, that is a whole different situation. His argument is, and this is jacked up because it doesn't make sense, that, well, now it's a bad idea for California because there's 49 other states that these businesses can move to that have a more business-friendly environment. And so that's different than what we're talking about in the United States of America. No, it's not, because there are lots of other countries. In fact, there's more than 49 other countries that businesses can and in the past have moved to because their economic environment is more business friendly than the United States. It's the exact same thing. But here you have a guy that wants to be president of the United States, and he's arguing that he wants to do to the entire country what even he acknowledges is economically horrible for the people of California. And this is where somebody like Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, relies on the existence of voters who have no ability to exercise even the most basic, fundamental common sense. Weather in a moment, now the latest news. Sorry. Do you want to do weather now?
Yeah.
The gun got jumped there a bit.
Way to
No
go.
fault of my own, of
Yeah,
course.
of
At
course.
all. None. Zero.
Yep. No accountability. The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies. It'll be breezy as well, with the temperature falling to around 35 this afternoon. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 18. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 43. And for Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
Last week, I guess it was, when the additional videos came out showing a much clearer picture of what actually happened with the shooting in Minneapolis. I noted that there's essentially one or two way things can go. Either the media would allow this to quietly go away because it was clear that she was there to block traffic and that she gunned it, right? In fact, her wife even said, "Drive, baby, drive," before she gunned it. I mean, it was clear. It's very clear what happened. And then the body cam footage, or I don't know if it was body cam or phone, but in which he actually got hit. So they would either, once the truth was revealed, start to back away, or they would just conveniently only show the video that didn't show what actually happened. And I've just noticed is, we have monitors here in studio, and I, see every time the story pops up, they show the video that shows the least amount of relevant information. Isn't that just amazing? I heard one Democrat complaining that the Trump administration or that ICE or whomever, the people on the side of immigration enforcement, they keep showing selective videos. Well, yeah, the ones that show what actually happened, yeah. Yep, that's accurate, because if you want people to have the most clear view and understanding of what happened, you show the videos that demonstrate the most clear view of what actually happened. One of the other hilarious narratives coming from the left is that these people are not qualified to be in law enforcement. These are the same people who for how long told us Joe Biden was sharp as a tack and more qualified to be president than anyone? Excuse me, if your judgment gets called into question to some degree as to whether or not someone is qualified for his or her particular job. Issue of Greenland. A couple of bits of information I want to share with you this morning. I want to throw this out to everyone. This isn't for any particular political persuasion, but it is a lesson that those on the left could truly learn. If you can't explain, if you're on a particular side of the issue and you can't explain the opposition's perspective, then you are not as qualified to in an informed manner discuss what is going on as somebody who can do that. Now, oftentimes the opposition, their perspective is simply, well, you're a racist, and that's all that there is. But Greenland is an example in which there is very specific reasons that Donald Trump has been talking about acquiring Greenland. And frankly, even a lot of Republicans can't tell you what that perspective is. And again, I would argue that you're not equipped to be as credible as somebody who can provide that perspective. Ultimately, and we talked about it in the very beginnings of all of this public discussion, it's about national security issues, and it's about China, Russia as well. And Trump knows this. Now, we've heard a lot, particularly from the Danish, that, oh, well, now this isn't true. We're talking about politicians. And in fact, China is one of the big promoters of the pushback against this assessment. Guess whose intelligence just months ago revealed this very reality? Just the News has the story. While Denmark's leaders downplay the threat to Greenland posed by Russia and China amidst Donald Trump's outspoken desire to acquire the frozen island, Denmark's Danish Defense Intelligence Service, the DDIS, recently released an assessment bluntly warning of Russia and Chinese military ambitions towards an expansion around Greenland and the Arctic. Trump said last week the U.S. needs Greenland from the standpoint of national security, as he argued that the frozen autonomous territory owned by Denmark was covered with Russian and Chinese ships. Top Danish foreign policy and defense officials quickly sought to push back on his claims because, of course, they're going to, because this is a notation of their failure. So, yeah, they're going to say that's not true. Some of the top Danish foreign policy and defense officials went so far as to claim that there are no Russian and Chinese ships near Greenland and that it's delusional to think Russia and Chinese pose any threat to the frozen island. Chinese propaganda outlets and its foreign ministry echoed the Danish denials and claimed the U.S. was acting out of a sense of self-interest, not based on national security concerns. But the Intelligence Outlook 2025 report on the security of the Kingdom of Denmark, released just last month, had warned at great length, again, this is coming from Denmark, quote, China is preparing for a military presence in the Arctic, and China's long-term Arctic interests include Greenland. The report highlighted Chinese air-based, seaborne, and submersible activities in the Arctic. The Danish intelligence report had further assessed that the militaries of China and Russia were collaborating together more closely in the Arctic, displaying the growing Dragon Bear alliance between the president of China and Vladimir Putin. The report noted that Russia, quote, uses every available tool to monitor and chart the waters between Greenland, Iceland, the Faroe Islands, and the United Kingdom as part of the preparations for a potential confrontation with NATO, and as the Kremlin deploys submarines, ships, and planes near Greenland. So this isn't something that Donald Trump is just making up. This isn't something that he's just like, Greenland looks fun. Let's take that. Yeah, I'll just say it's for national security purposes. The Danish Foreign Intelligence Assessment going through all of 2025 said top priority, biggest national security concern, by the way, not just to Denmark, but to NATO, is China and Russia. Exactly what Donald Trump is saying. And this is yet another instance in which Donald Trump apparently is the only one that is trying to take meaningful steps that is not only in the best interest of the national security of the United States, but for NATO as well. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. The talk about Greenland, once again, it has put the left in this, well, it's the end of NATO as we know it mode, which, as usual, the consistency is pretty remarkable. Anytime they talk about Trump doing something that is going to result in the weakening or the abolition of NATO, it actually results in NATO becoming stronger. And the issue with Greenland is the same. And I was in the last segment revealing, and Just the News had this story, that last month, an assessment from the Danish intelligence that covered all of 2025, but the report was just released last month, said that top priorities is Russia and China. They are collaborating together in order to invade that part of the world. So Donald Trump is just speaking the truth here. And he's talking in the context of security for NATO. The Secretary General, Mark Rutte, was asked, and I think this is over the last couple of days, about this whole issue. And what about NATO? Is this going to be the end of NATO? Donald Trump's attacking NATO.
The Secretary General, can you recall a larger internal crisis that NATO has faced than the one the alliance is facing now, with Donald Trump saying we should go to Greenland and, take it? Or do you even see that as an internal crisis? Or is it not a crisis at all? And is the best way of communicating with Mr. Trump and trying to maybe smooth the relationship is the way that you have been using communication so far, which was basically flooding him with compliments and calling him daddy? Thank you.
Yeah, let me start with challenge you a bit on the second part of your question. What I always do is when people are helpful for the alliance and are doing good stuff, and I believe that Donald Trump is doing the right things for NATO, by encouraging us all to spend more, to equalize this what the US is spending. We had a very successful summit in The Hague, where we decided on the 5% defense spending, including 3.5% from core defense. I'm absolutely convinced without Donald Trump, we would never have had that result at the summit in The Hague. We have now the whole of the alliance on this famous 2%, which we announced in 2014 in Wales. I'm absolutely convinced without Donald Trump, we would not have the whole alliance at this moment on the 2% and now working towards the 3.5%, incredible steps. So when I praise somebody, it is based on facts, and I believe the facts are there. We might disagree, but that is how I see this. As Mr. Secretary General, it is my role to make sure that the whole of the alliance is as secure and safe as possible. And I applaud the fact that our colleagues who are bordering on the Arctic have come together, have worked together, and have decided to get NATO more and more involved. This was the discussion in Brussels I referred to in answering a few previous questions. Earlier last year in September and other moments last year when we discussed the High North. And we are now building on that. You've seen some announcements by the Brits and the Germans today. We are working now together to see how we can basically together as an alliance, including our 7 members, our allies bordering on the High North, on the Arctic, to work together to indeed build that next step, which is crucial. That's the United States, that's Canada, that's Iceland, Denmark, and the other European countries bordering on the High North, all 7, but of course with the whole of the alliance. By the way, as we speak, we see Denmark at the moment already speeding up their investments when it comes to defense, not only generally, but also when it comes to unique capabilities to defend territories like Greenland. So they're buying more F-35s, they are working on air-to-air refueling, they have bought these P-8 Boeings, the long-range drones, billions invested there in American equipment necessary to defend Denmark, NATO, but also territories like Greenland. So we are really working together here. And my only worry is, how do we stay safe against the Russians, against any other adversary? Look at what China is doing in rapidly building up its own armed forces, but also North Koreans and others who might wish us ill, and not well at least. And therefore, that's my role, and I think we will get there.
So no crisis whatsoever?
No, not at all, and I think we are really working in the right direction.
All right, so there is a 3-minute answer to a simple question: has NATO ever been in such turmoil with this internal fighting over Greenland? And what the Secretary General there noted was not just what is going on now, but the realities of the Trump effect on NATO. And as he explained, he's like, listen, I have one job, and my one job is making sure NATO is strong and secure as possible. And he ticked off the different things that Trump has done and explained how it is not only not made NATO weaker, but has actually made NATO stronger, up to and including, he mentioned there at the end of his statement, Greenland has begun to take more proactive steps in order to protect themselves and to protect NATO in the context of China and Russia. And so, again, not only is Donald Trump not making moves that are weakening NATO and the national security of the United States when it comes to Greenland. But again, according to the Secretary General of NATO, he is once again behaving in a manner that is improving the strength and solidity of NATO. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well, with temperatures falling to around 35 this afternoon. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 18. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 43. And for Friday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 46.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. I have said before on air and off air that you don't really have to be an expert in areas in which you have friends that are. And Emily Johnson is a tremendous example of this. Now, I'm not talking about, I don't have to be an expert in real estate because she's a friend of mine and she is. While that does apply, I'm talking about that principle being in application in terms of what she does and the fact that she knows all of the people in all of the different industries that oftentimes are called upon to do home repairs, whether they're minor or perhaps sometimes major. And if you've been through the process before, I know when we purchased our home years and years ago, there were a number of things, I think like termite damage and some foundation stuff, and I forget the listing, but there were 3 or 4 things that we said, we'd like to buy the home and we'll hit your asking price, but we want these things done first. Well, these are different industries. Oftentimes people don't have any connections to, but Emily Johnson does. And she knows who's good. She knows who's reliable. She knows who's not going to rip you off. And one of the consistent lines of feedback that come from people who are so pleased that they had her in their corner was the fact that when it came to so many of these necessary upgrades or repairs, she not only at times was able to put them in the absolute right direction, but some noted she set the appointments up for us. So you get so much more than just somebody who's going to find homes, show you homes, walk you through homes, or help you simply sell your home by having people walk through your home. You get all of the above, and then you get those connections to the people that help you make those necessary upgrades and fixes that oftentimes come with buying or selling a home. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Yesterday, or no, what's today? I guess it was Monday. I was talking with, I think it was during the conversation with Congressman Burleson about a lot of these guys on the left, these elected officials, and just like the breaking down and the crying all the time. And there was video circulating of the Minneapolis mayor throwing himself on the coffin of George Floyd and weeping a few years ago. You had the police chief in Portland crying, talking about the gang members getting shot and hospitalized by ICE. And just like, what is with these Democrats, these guys, and this weepiness and this anti-manliness, and he chalked it up to performative behavior. I think that maybe there's something else in there, and you hear it a lot of times associated with low testosterone, which I thought this would be a great time to have Joshua come in from Game Day Men's Health. And, we had you and Dawn in here some time ago because we've, partnered together, and I learned a tremendous amount that I did not know, and I think there's so much information out there that lead people to think, well, I can just order some sort of powder stuff online, or I think I might have low testosterone, and I've seen where I can just text this code and I get a free month supply. And so it oftentimes leads people to believe, well, if I can do that, why should I go to Game Day Men's Health? What's the difference? And so we had you in to talk a bit about that, and I know I got a tremendous amount of response for it. So I just thought, new year and everything, it'd be great to have you back in for a few minutes. And as people make resolutions, particularly concerning their health, so often it falls off. And it falls off because it takes a lot of hard work and dedication, particularly working out. But if you're looking for something that is a lot easier and can have a tremendous improvement on your health, then, this is a route I recommend. It's helped me tremendously. And so you guys, it's been a year now. Is that right? Somewhere around there?
Thank you for having us on, Reed. Yep. And it's been about a year. I think we opened in April. I took over as the general manager back in August. Just because I believe so much in what we're doing with men's health and everything. I was the man that walked into a Game Day in Men's Health in January of last year. I was almost 400 pounds overweight. And now I sit about 230, and I feel better at 32 than I ever did at 23.
I joked about the men crying and the need for it, but the reason I did that is because it is so much more than that. And a lot of the huge advertising campaigns, they're these former athletes, and it shows the guys, throwing the ropes and working out, and that isn't, while it definitely does help people in that category, it doesn't have to be isolated to that core category. I'm clearly an example of someone that wasn't looking to be able to really show off in the gym to a larger degree. And another selling point for me is, and we had, you all have a cardiologist on staff and talking about the benefits to the heart. That's something that is important to me. So what are some of the areas that people may not recognize necessarily are the benefits of the treatment?
It's really not just for going to the gym and getting jacked or swole. It's really about overall health and wellness. Brain fog, depression, low libido, just not feeling like a man and that you should. And you search for answers. You try to do these fad diets, try to go to the gym, try to figure out some solution. And I know personally nothing ever felt like it really worked. I felt like I was just putting a Band-Aid on the situation, and then finding the testosterone through Game Day and finding a provider who's very proactive instead of reactive, and you're not just ordering something offline, but you're getting regular lab work, any adjustment
which I've
that's
had,
done.
all that.
It's very proactive, and we have a great, amazing team. We got Lisa, our nurse practitioner.
Yep.
She has 17 years of experience. We have Jennifer, our medical assistant. She has a bachelor's from Missouri State in sports medicine. And then me as the general manager. We have a really great team. Come in, see us, get your blood drawn, and just find out what your numbers are, and let's have a conversation.
That you mentioned, and I've been with you all long enough to where I've had the tests done just to sort of monitor how things are going. That's all part of it. I know also, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but for people that don't necessarily want to come in weekly, it can be shipped to them. They can do it themselves. I like to come in. It's not really inconvenient for me. Generally, once a week when I'm finished with work, I swing by. But I do, whether, I see Dawn sometimes, but you, Lisa, every once in a while, but I'll always see you and Jennifer. She's fantastic. And so I kind of enjoy coming by. And I'd say about, I don't know, there's a significant percentage of the time that there's a listener that happens to be coming in or out at the same time. And so for me, it becomes just a little bit social. But you can have it delivered to do on your own, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, you all have the testing, the lab there, so it's not something you send off. You get blood tested, 20 or 30 minutes. You're going to sit down. I know I sat down with Lisa. She went over everything, what it meant, what the next steps would be. That was something that was just a courtesy, being connected to KSGF. Is there now a cost associated with that, or do
No,
KSGF
the
listeners?
initial
Okay, good.
consult's still free. Come in. We'll get your blood drawn. You'll talk with me, talk with Jennifer, meet with Lisa, go over your plan of attack, and then if you decide to sign up, we can get you started with treatment that day.
I would also note that, use myself as an example. I'm at the age when I was my regular annual checkup with my doctor, and I was told, "Oh, your testosterone levels are normal." Well, I later would find out that normal for quote my age. It doesn't have to be that way. People are like, well, when you get older, you just start getting tired, and well, that's because your testosterone, if you're a guy, oftentimes has gone down. And I think a lot of people, even younger men, and I talked to Lisa about this, sometimes have shockingly low testosterone.
It is shockingly low for it. We have guys from the age of 20 all the way up to the age
Yeah,
of 80.
it's crazy.
It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
Everyone suffers from this. It's just a matter of how bad and the extent of it.
I was communicating with a listener who actually was coming in for his first, blood work last week, and he was asking me to ballpark. He's like, "What should I expect to spend?" I know it does vary from person to person, but people that want a ballpark figure, if they can benefit from the weekly treatments, what should they be expected to be looking at?
For the monthly testosterone subscription, it's about $220 a month.
Okay.
And then we do 10% for military and first
Oh,
responders.
okay, fantastic. And then does that still include the updated lab work where you check?
The lab work's a separate fee.
Okay, got that. And how often does that get done?
The lab work is a one-time fee for the year, and then we run
okay.
labs at 4 to 6 weeks. 3 months after that, the 6-month mark, and then
Got
the
it.
1 year mark. And then obviously we'll run a couple extra labs if we adjust our dose
Sure.
that time and everything, or we see something we don't like on some blood work or something like that. But
You all are located on National, just across from the what's that building called? I know.
it's the National Lab Workplace Building.
Okay, a lot of people probably they could see Einstein Bagels, and there's a florist there, so it's just to the north of that. Parking sometimes up front, depending on the time of the day, may be occupied, but there's parking in back as well. And you guys are on 4th floor.
Yes, sir.
Anything else I'm missing? How is it people can make an appointment?
You can go online to GameDayMen'sHealth.com, book an appointment, or give us a call at the office. We are open Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, 8 to 6. And someone's always there to answer the phone during those days.
All right. Well, there's no reason whatsoever to not at least go and get that free lab testing done to see whether or not it can benefit you. So I definitely recommend. And listeners come up and they're like, "So are you really there?" I'm like, "Yeah, just go. There's no reason not to." And I'll tell everyone hi, but I'll see everyone tomorrow, I guess.
Yes, sir.
I'll be in there. Joshua, Game Day Men's Health. It's good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. I know how busy you are. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Madeline wrote this about the Pyramid Roofing Company. I can't say enough great things about Tony. Responsive, timely, and does not try to oversell. I lost count of contractors that tried to sell me an entire unnecessary new roof instead of sticking to the requested smaller repairs, but not Tony. He quoted exactly what I needed and asked for. He did it with kindness, thoroughness, and promptness. I will use him and the Pyramid Roofing Company for future projects. And I do mention all the time that because I'm like Madeline, I hate being sold to, but that is not how the Pyramid team rolls. They let you know exactly what needs to be done with no extra fluff. If it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh today and schedule that free roof inspection. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
President Trump yesterday traveling to Michigan to tour the Ford F-150 plant in Dearborn and deliver remarks to the Detroit Economic Club. He first visited the plant when he received a warm welcome. The president took selfies with workers as he made his way through the plant. However, at one point, a disgruntled left-wing nut heckled the president as he walked with Ford Executive Chairman Bill Ford Jr. Heckler appeared to shout, "Pedophile protector," as Trump toured the plant. Trump shot back with a middle finger and appeared to mouth "F you." I mean, I don't know why I find it so funny. You think Trump needs testosterone? I think he's probably doing pretty good. I don't even think he probably has to take any sort of thing. He just creates it. I don't know what he said, but the MS Now has a story, Representative Ro Khanna on video of Trump flipping off a person in Detroit. I'm sure that it's just appalling to Democrat. Listen, I think we can. Here's the thing. We do live in a different time in which there was a certain presentation that was expected by the general public when it came to the presidency. And I would argue that really changed with Clinton. Not to the degree that it has changed under Donald Trump. But before Bill Clinton came along and answered questions about whether he wore boxers or briefs to young girls in the audience, which was obviously a pre-approved question when he did a Q&A at some town hall meeting. You know, he's playing the saxophone on Arsenio Hall, and for better or worse, that was a real drastic shift in terms of the way a person who wanted to be or was elected president behaved. And then, I mean, and I'm not talking about the under the desk in the Oval Office and, you know, all of the activities he was involved in with women and interns and all of that. But I'm just talking about the public things that he was doing out in public. And so that, you know, that's changed. It's just a different time. Our expectations are different. What I love, though, is whenever Democrats suddenly act as if we're back in the 1800s, and how dare Donald Trump do something like that? Particularly when this is a political party that has made it common to call people that don't agree with you Nazis and racists and homophobes and deplorables and every other name under the book. And they've done that for a very long time. My entire adult voting life, people on the left have referred to me and people that I have supported as being some of the worst things in the entire world. But when Donald Trump comes along and calls Rosie O'Donnell fat, suddenly, well, now, wait a minute here. You can't do that. You're ripping us apart. How dare you name call? I'm like, are you kidding? The worst names that a person could possibly ever conceive to call another person is what Democrats constantly, again, for my entire adult life, have been calling Republicans and Republican voters. You see, this is the double standard that they have so long expected. And so when Trump comes along and gives it back to them and other Republicans give it back to them, it's like all of this, well, this justice. You're just causing all of this strife and these divisions, and it's just so unpresidential. I think because of all of the other reasons that Democrats have created to call people that disagree with them fascist and all these other things. I don't know that there's going to be a great deal of attention paid to this deal where, Trump flipped off someone. But let's also not forget, they defended Joe Biden when he was at a factory. And didn't he, challenge somebody to a fight? Or to a push-up contest, or he got in his face and said, "You listen here," and that guy wasn't even calling Biden a name. He just was, as a worker, talking. It was policy stuff, and had to do with taxes or something that was policy-driven, which is obviously much different than just screaming some sort of slur, which is what Trump was subject to. So, forgive me if the pearl clutching from the left is met with somewhat of laughter when Donald Trump gives the finger to some left-wing nut whose summation of argument is just to call the guy a name. You think that guy will get fired from Ford?
I mean,
I'd
the guy,
fire him.
yeah, I think he might, because the guy that was walking with Trump, you can see him. He's pointing at him, I see you. So,
Of course, I'm sure if the guy's union, he's probably protected. But
Yeah.
I'd fire somebody listen.
come on.
You got your problems and everything, and I'd like to think if I'm in charge of this whole thing and I have an employee do that, and even if it's Obama or something, I'd still be like, you know what? If you can't control yourself, we don't need 12-year-olds working here.
Yep.
You're just out. That's the thing about these people on the left. You watch them. I talked about this yesterday. They are emotional toddlers. It's one of the reasons it really does frighten me about the future of this country. They don't have the emotional discipline to even act like a well-behaved 6-year-old. They literally have no control over their emotions. And you know what happens when people who have no control over their emotions, they don't know how to handle them when they get really, really angry. They do crazy things sometimes, try to kill people with whom they disagree. And you just watch these. I just can't imagine having such a lack of emotional control that you can't stop yourself from acting like a spoiled 5-year-old who hasn't gotten his or her way. And so you scream and yell and throw things and name call. And these are supposed to be adults. It's embarrassing as a culture, for one, but it's a little frightening. And I tell you what I think about when I see these people serve on juries. How on earth can any normal person, particularly like if you're a white guy or you're a Republican or you're a Christian, you have one of these people sitting on a jury in which you are on trial for something? You think that they even have the ability, even if they really told themselves, I'm going to really make sure that I only judge this by the facts, you think they have the ability to not lose control emotionally and decide because I hate you? These are people who are now arguing it is legit to try and run over law enforcement, that hitting a member of law enforcement with your vehicle is no big deal. These people serve on juries. Got another hour straight ahead. Okay, that's what I have to say about that. We're streaming live. I realize I was like 5 seconds early, but now I have eaten up that 5 seconds. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, everyone. Welcome. My name is Nick Reed. Sarah Myers here as well.
Hello.
Hello. Streaming live, KSGF.com, the KSGF app. Great asset. On YouTube, you can watch us streaming there every Monday through Thursday while we're in studio. Fridays, of course, out on location at Scramblers. The O'Keefe Media Group yesterday released a video of a Secret Service agent assigned to J.D. Vance leaking sensitive information to an undercover reporter. The agent at the center of O'Keefe's latest sting, Thomas Escato, is a Biden holdover and has only been a U.S. citizen since 2018. Escato told the O'Keefe Media Group undercover reporter details about how Vance is surrounded and revealed advanced security procedures. The Secret Service agent also revealed Vance's future travel plans and sent images from Air Force Two while he was traveling with Vance. Thomas Escato said he voted for Joe Biden and opposes the Trump administration's ICE operations. According to O'Keefe, Escato was placed on administrative leave and his security clearance was suspended. He needs to go to prison. We have got to start raising the bar of expectations for people whose job it is to protect the life of these different individuals, whether it be the president or the vice president or if it's Secretary of State or whomever has secret security. This almost blasé attitude about these individuals, not to mention when you realize that the Secret Service is populated with individuals like this, and then you have these attempts on the president's life in which they should have never gotten as close as they actually did, you can understand why people have no confidence whatsoever in the Secret Service. It's also detrimental to those in the Secret Service who really are serious about their job. These people that leak this information, they need to go to prison. Firing them's not enough. I think a lot of people oftentimes, they'll get transferred or, they're suspended for a while. They're like, they need to be fired. They need to go to prison. Now, I don't believe every person who leaks information that is a government official that should not be leaked should go to prison. But for Pete's sakes, you're talking about individual. He clearly didn't know who he was actually talking to. The Secret Service agent. Obviously, he did not know who he was talking to. He did not have that judgment. So this could have been someone who was seeking information for the purposes of assassinating J.D. Vance. If you, I would argue that anyone in the Secret Service, and this is not punitive, but anyone in the Secret Service that has ever been on social media or that anyone else has like any idea, they're a lefty, or, they hate the left, or they should not be in the Secret Service. If you don't have the intellectual and emotional discipline to keep that to yourself, I highly suspect you don't have the intellectual and emotional discipline to take a bullet for the person. I mean, this is an organization that once upon a time was viewed as, particularly those that are assigned detail to the presidency. Now, obviously, there are so many other jobs, particularly when it comes to U.S. currency, that the Secret Service is responsible for. But I'm talking about those whose job it is to make sure that the security of the people that they're guarding is impenetrable. When you're running around providing security detail, not just past and future, about the Vice President of the United States to somebody that you don't even know who they actually are, you should go to prison. We act as if these jobs are, they're not that big of a deal. They're not that important. It is that culture of almost indifference that I believe has led to the potential assassination, and in one instance, Trump actually being shot. Of course, we know if this, and listen, there may not be a law in place. There should be. If that's what has to happen, there has to be a law in place for people who are in a position of protecting the lives of these individuals, but then are out there leaking information that can potentially lead to the person's life being in danger. If there's not a law that says these people go to prison, there needs to be a law that says these people go to prison. Speaking of, a volunteer radio show host at WUML, which is funded by the University of Massachusetts, left-wing radio show host, has been allowed to resign after posting on Blue Sky calling for the assassination of Vice President J.D. Vance. The left-wing radio host wrote on from an account with the name hanslopez.bsky.social. It's simple. We killed J.D. Vance. The comment was made in response to someone who claimed J.D. Vance thinks Britain and France are America's likely enemies. These are the people we're dealing with. The people on the left. This is what I think a lot of maybe even normal people don't understand. When they see this poet mom that they're convinced was just trying to, park her car or get out of the way, gun it towards a member of ICE, they all understand that there are people out there who are calling for them to be murdered, that genuinely want to encourage people to kill them, whether it's J.D. Vance, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's a Charlie Kirk style freedom of speech promoter, or it is a member of ICE. And part of the environment that contributes to the increase in violence is the left pretending like it's no big deal. And the fact that we have witnessed, of course, in the context of the shooting that took place in Minneapolis, an anti-ICE person whom we now know went to weekly seminars on how to be a soldier to carry out what they called a micro-intifada, a holy war against law enforcement and against ICE. And that her gunning it and hitting a member of ICE, the left is minimizing it. They are trying to make it seem like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. They're normalizing violence. What was it? Jon Stewart called it a minor. He was giving an interview recently, and he called it like a minor something. Again, downplaying it. Because the more you downplay it, and you think about how at the same time they take violence against these people that they dehumanize, and they make it seem like, oh, it's no big deal. No big deal. While at the same time taking people who are just doing their jobs and characterizing that as if it is something that is atrocious and needs to be dealt with. They know what they're doing. They want more of it, not less. And these useful idiots have no idea that they're being used. And it has become clear that the left in this country have made a determination that the most easily manipulated demographic are liberal women, specifically liberal white women, and they are playing them like puppets. These, big manly men manipulating lunatic women into going out and doing their dirty work for them. Such brave men on the left. We got traffic coming up. Also, weather as it is expected to get even colder. Some of the nicer, mild weather going away, which is appropriate given it is middle of January. So we'll have that weather in a moment. Right now, news.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well, with temperatures falling to around 35 this afternoon. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 18. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 43. And for Friday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 46.
Sarah Myers.
Thank you. It's always good to have friends in the home repair industry, and my go-to guys in the specific area of HVAC are Russell and his team over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. They are more than a group of guys that just show up whenever, charge an arm and a leg, and leave, and you don't really establish a connection. Instead, the Foreman team, they are locally owned. They have a great group of techs that have such a positive mindset, and the best part is they won't rip you off. If you are wanting to keep your unit for as long as possible and you want to keep up with routine maintenance and an occasional service repair, they work with you to the best of their ability. And I know that to be true because we had that situation. Our units, they were about 28 years old, and for a while we did the whole routine maintenance and a couple of service calls, and I never felt pressure to update my unit. But I finally did over the summer, and the Foreman team, amazing to work with. If it's time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Springfield campaign finance limits could be enforced by a citizen board. The Springfield City Council Committee is considering an ordinance to limit campaign contributions to $2,825 per election cycle. The proposed ordinance would establish a 9-person citizen commission to oversee campaign finance and investigate violations. Violations could result in a fine of up to $1,000 or a maximum of 6 months in jail. The effort to limit how much citizens can contribute of their own money to council candidates may be nearing completion as a council committee reviews how the regulation would be enforced at the meeting. That limit of 2825 would be to individuals running for Springfield mayor or council seats during an election cycle. Currently, no law or ordinance limits contributions to council candidates' campaigns in Springfield. The city council's plan and policies committee have been reviewing a potential ordinance to establish these caps since fall. Now, their plan here is, as usual with the left, is massively complicated. As the news leader describes it, the version of the ordinance would establish a 9-person citizen commission appointed by the council to oversee election campaign finance and be charged with investigating violations. It would include guidelines that there would then be a 2-year look-back window for violations to be investigated. The way that it explains that it would work is that there would be 3 separate avenues, or there are 3 separate avenues established by the proposed ordinance regarding how the commission would initiate investigations. In the event of a filed complaint or for the commission to initiate an investigation on its own accord, 5 of the 9 members would have to vote in the affirmative. The commission could also be tasked by city council to investigate an alleged violation. By the way, do you think the council would vote to investigate if it involved one of their own? Are we seriously supposed to believe that? Now, I'm going to give you the headline here. This is incumbent protection. This is to make it more difficult for outsiders to unseat the incumbents, and I'll explain why that is in a moment. Upon receiving a complaint, the subject of the complaint would be notified and given 10 days to respond. Then, if the commission votes to proceed with the investigation, it would hold a hearing at the request of the subject where evidence and testimony could be reviewed. Prior to a final report, the City Ethics Commission would give the subject of the complaint the opportunity for a final response and disclose any additional evidence it reviewed of the matter. In order to ensure timely attention to complaints, the ordinance established that the commission must issue a decision within 90 days of the filing of the complaint. If a violation is found, the commission would issue a written opinion and explanation of the violation and any appropriate action to be considered. The ordinance lay out a penalty of a fine not to exceed $1,000 and not more than 6 months in jail. So the best I can tell is that what they're trying to do here is create an ordinance in which they can put a person in jail without actually having any trial. No judge, no jury. Am I the only one that has a problem with that? That the council just gets to pick a handful of people that ultimately decide whether a person goes to jail or not? That's the way it sounds, how it's explained here. It says that this would all be the commission, which is appointed by the council, and that if the commission determines, if they decide that you as a citizen violated, by the way, this is going to be aimed at citizens, they can put you in jail for up to 6 months, and you don't get any sort of any rights you have. Do you think they're going to guarantee you the right to an attorney, and if you can't afford one will be appointed to you? Highly doubt that. What sort of Iranian regime approach is this? I mean, these people. While the ordinance lays out a pathway for the commission to have a dedicated ethics compliant officer as part of the city's staff, it is said they don't believe that the work would require a dedicated full-time staff person and instead be absorbed by a person either within the city attorney's office or the city clerk's office. Now, I can't even begin to fathom that this would hold up to judicial scrutiny. The idea that you could just have some commission throw people in jail without a trial, without it. The fact that the city of Springfield is populated with elected officials that thinks this is reasonable, it tells you how insane they are, how nutty they are. The reason that all of these campaign finance laws, I know, they make us feel good, right? because we're told money is the problem in politics. And so if you limit the amount of money that a citizen can give to a candidate, then that somehow is going to make people in politics more honest. So this is protecting us from them. This is them saying, hey, we're going to be more honest and trustworthy if we limit how much money you can donate to us. Now, notice it doesn't put a cap on how much money they can raise. This isn't saying, oh, anyone who's running for council, including incumbents, can only raise up to $50,000. If the problem is money, then why isn't there a cap on how much they can receive as opposed to how much you can give? I'll tell you why. Because this is not about making them more ethical. This is not about, I just love the whole premise. You can't trust us, so trust us to limit how much money you can donate so that you can in turn trust us. Because we're so unethical, we're so immoral that you can't trust us currently because you can give us more money than $2,825. And exactly what moral compass is used to make that determination that somehow $2,825 is what will force them or compel them to continue to be honest and ethical as opposed to, let's say, $3,000. Well, now if it's $3,000, clearly we're going to have problems on our hands. When you are, well, we've got to take a break. And I want to explain why this is always incumbent protection. This is rigging the system to make it more difficult for somebody who is running against an incumbent to have a chance to have a viable campaign. I want a great homeloan.com for any of your home loan needs and refinancing and reverse mortgages. Don't talk a lot about the reverse mortgage component of this. It was a real hot subject in terms of advertising for a while. I'd see, I think, Tom Selleck doing TV ads for it, and you heard a lot about it. And I think a lot of people, they worry, like, well, wait a minute, what are they? So they basically get my house and then they pay me for it. But what happens whenever that money runs out? Do I get kicked out of my house? And do I have to own it outright? There's a lot of misconceptions. It is, for a lot of people, a very legitimate and wise thing to do. And so if you just are curious about how that would work, reach out to the Carrickers and ask them, and they'll explain that to you, and the sort of scenario that it makes more sense than others. But it is something that, because it's not the sort of thing most people have done or even know someone who've done it. There's a lot of skepticism about it, which is good, but there are a lot of answers as well as to why it is for some people a really legit and wise move to make. So whether it is the home loan or the reverse mortgage or the refinancing, you can reach out to the Carrickers at iwantagreathomeloan.com because you do.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well, with temperatures falling to around 35 this afternoon. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 18. For your Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 43. And for Friday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 46.
The Springfield City Council is attempting to create their own campaign finance laws, arguing that they cannot be trusted because of money in politics. They may be influenced by it. So they're not putting a cap on how much they can raise, but how much you can give, because you are apparently the problem. And according to the plan, as it's written in the news leader, they will create a 9-person citizen commission that they appoint. They pick the people. And then if there is an accusation and the commission investigates it and they determine that you are guilty, they can, according to the way it's written here, the ordinance lays out the penalty of a fine not to exceed $1,000 and not more than 6 months in jail. Now, this isn't a trial with a jury, and you have the right to an attorney if you can't afford one, and then there's a judge and all of the legal protections. They apparently are completely bypassing that, and they are going to pick the judge and jury, a 9-person commission that can just put you in jail if they want to. Now, that just really sounds like a good idea, does it not? Not to beat this point to death, but it really tells you a lot about the mindset of these people, that not a single person, including the city attorney, says, yeah, we can't really do that. We don't get to bypass the person's constitutional rights and just create our new Iranian-style judicial system where we get to pick the people that decide whether or not somebody who is donating to a challenger goes to jail for 6 weeks. Or 6 months, rather. You think these people aren't extreme leftists? That's all you need to know. Aside from that, and again, do you think for a moment that this would be used in order to punish somebody that donated to one of their own? Do we really believe that? We saw how the city dealt with the Jan Fisk fiasco. And to recap that simply, the city charter states that no one who's on the city council can vote on anything that in any way whatsoever, directly or indirectly, may financially benefit them. And if they do, they shall be removed from the council. Shall. S-H-A-L. In other words, there is no other option. And Jan Fisk did it. And the council drug it out for like a year and a half. And then when she said, I'm not going to run for re-election, Mayor McCheese was like, well, there's no reason to really belabor the point. It's okay. We don't need to hold her accountable. They take care of their own. They're certainly not going to put one of their own in jail for 6 months. But if you're a challenger, so not only is this incumbent protection from the standpoint of this Iranian-style judicial system that they're trying to set up, but from the fundraising component, and this is the big tell on it, they don't put a cap on how much they can raise. They put a cap on how much you can donate. And here's why this is significant. If you're an incumbent, you already have built-in support. Already. You already have a donor list. All of that is established. You already have people who have benefited from you being in office, and so it benefits them to make sure you stay in office, so they go out and they hold fundraisers for you. They can easily gather people together and get them to donate. And because you are an incumbent, you automatically have people that will donate to you. Now, one of the reasons it is very difficult to unseat an incumbent is because they have all of that built in going for them. The ability to counter that is to get dollar donations and to get a lot of them. That gives you some ability to try to counter the built-in infrastructure and support they already have. Well, what better way to make it more difficult for a person to a challenger to overcome that built-in infrastructure than to make it more difficult for them to raise money? And people don't like to donate money to a cause or to a person that they don't feel really has a chance. Now, the way that you can overcome that if you don't have limits is you get somebody who really believes in you, and they write you a check for $10,000. And so you already have demonstrated, all right, I have enough money to be viable. And that, in turn, makes it a bit easier to raise money from other people because they see, all right, well, they clearly have some money, some backing here. By putting a limitation on that, and they know exactly what they're doing, they're snuffing out that option. And by the way, if the whole fundraising thing is an unappealing aspect of running for office, when you put a limitation on how much somebody can raise, does that require a person to hold more or less fundraisers? It requires them to hold more fundraisers. Because you can't just get a couple of massive checks. You have to do fundraiser after fundraiser after fundraiser after fundraiser in order to try and be at the very least viable taking on an incumbent. If this really worked, Just ask yourself on a national level, because of the different when it comes to dollar donations, and once upon a time, those restrictions were not there. Do we really want to argue that it has made our elected officials on the whole, our government on the whole, more honest and transparent since campaign finance laws have been put into effect, since McCain and Feingold went into effect in, the late 90s, whenever that was? Is that what we're really going to argue? Can we point to examples of areas of the country that have restricted the dollar amount that citizens can give, and the results of look how much better everything is, so ethical, so honest, so transparent? Why? Do you ever notice they never provide those examples? The news leader piece does note that the city of Springfield has modeled this plan that is used by Kansas City. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I've never really thought, when I'm thinking about Kansas City, as, oh, well, now that's a place that politically is pure as the driven snow. They really have things figured out. The people of Kansas City overwhelmingly say, hey, we used to be cynical about politics, but, now that they put limitations on us in terms of how much we can contribute and how much of an impact we can have on elections, I just feel as if they're honest now. Even if you believe that you should not have your constitutional rights, and the city of Springfield should set up a 9-person commission that can throw you in jail if they think that you have violated this law, even if you believe that, and you somehow believe that this doesn't make it more difficult for challengers to unseat incumbents, you can't point to a single jurisdiction in which this has actually resulted in somehow the people being more confident or viewing the results of a more honest government. It just doesn't work. And let me tell you, here's a final bit of evidence that this is BS, and that they know it's BS, and it's set up in order to protect incumbents. And if they don't know it, then they are so drastically naive, they should not be in a leadership position. We're told this is all done in the name of preventing people or organizations from having undue influence over elected officials, right? Well, if they write a $3,000 check, I might change my votes in a way that isn't in the best interest of the city of Springfield, but I might vote the way they want because they wrote a check for $3,000. What do you think has a greater impact on an election? A $3,000 check, and let me put it this way, what do you think is more coveted by incumbents in particular? A $3,000 check from someone, or an endorsement from the firefighters union? Clearly, it is recognized that endorsements from unions in particular, law enforcement, teachers unions, firefighters unions, have a massive impact on the vote. By the way, this isn't a dig on those unions. That's not what this is about. If we're really truly concerned about elected officials voting not in the best interest of the people overall, but of individuals or organizations because they so desperately want their support, then we would ban endorsements from these unions. Because that clearly is something that is much more important to people who are running for office, particularly incumbents. But they aren't going to do that. They would never even talk about doing that. Why? Because they want that. This is not about keeping them pure and honest. This is not about anything other than making sure it's easier for them to stay in office. And it clearly isn't about outside influences affecting the way that they vote. Because if that were the case, I'm telling you, there's nothing more, and they know it. There is nothing that they view as more powerful and that they want more than those union endorsements, than those TV ads of, firefighters supporting this candidate or that candidate as a union, and the signs, firefighters for this candidate or that candidate. They want that desperately. And if your argument is that elected officials may be swayed because of their desire to have a form of support for someone, union endorsements in particular are much more damaging to the process than any dollar amount that can be written with a check. But they will not even talk about doing that because they're full of crap. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. One of the news items that had come out, really being promoted by the media, that several prosecutors in Minneapolis U.S. Attorney's Office resign in protest over the DOJ's push to probe Renee Good's widow. Now, the probe is evident. I get it. There are a lot of people that maybe believe she should be probed, but legally. But they're like, that looks really bad because she's the wife of this and that. Listen, the fact of the matter is she yelled, "Drive, baby, drive," when she then, Renee Good, gunned it and hit that police officer. Now, listen, you take out the political aspect of it, anyone else would at the very least be investigated to see whether or not that was some sort of violation of law. If you tell someone, let's just take out the police aspect of it, and let's say that there are a bunch of No Kings protesters, and I'm sitting there and my girlfriend or my wife's in the car, and I yell, "Drive, baby, drive," and she guns it straight into the crowd, I think there's a chance, reasonably speaking, I might get in trouble for that. But I understand we can't take the politics out of it. So the report said, several prosecutors so outraged by this, so outraged, that they are stepping down in protest. Well, apparently, this is 100% untrue. Because the resignations, according to new reports, came in the day before this event even occurred. Town Hall reporting there are lawyers at the Justice Department who are quitting over the ICE shooting. That's the line we're going to hear for a few days, every mainstream outlet running with it, following the January 7th incident where left-wing activist Renee Nicole Good, 37, was shot while accelerating her vehicle towards an immigration officer. Good was known to have participated in past convoys that aimed to disrupt ICE raids. Multiple senior prosecutors in Washington and Minnesota are leaving their jobs amid turmoil over the Trump administration's handling of the shooting death of a Minneapolis woman, writes the Washington Post. The departure includes at least 5 prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minneapolis, including the office's second-in-command, according to emails obtained by the Washington Post and people familiar with the matter. While there may be a correction, because U.S. Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division, Harmeet Dhillon, noted that this is fake news, as they appear to be early retirements. Town Hall noting here that 3 people of the individuals that were told retired in protest actually applied for early retirement the day before the shooting, which occurred on January 7th. Those 3 people gave notice weeks before the shooting even took place. And the 4th person mentioned in the story put in for retirement in December of last year. 2 of the other people that the mainstream media is referring have not resigned and are currently at their desk working. The Daily Wire has learned. While they have, quote, apparently told the press they intend to resign, our office, Dhillon said, has not received notice of any resignations. So this is yet another complete, total lie. Yet the media, I mean, it's example after example after example. And, there were some people out there, after the whole fiasco regarding the media's cover-up of Joe Biden's mental health and the media, like, we just really got to self-reflect on this, thought, well, maybe, just maybe, they've learned their lesson. Maybe they will, in some self-reflection, determine that even if it runs against their instincts, it's just better for their product to not be dishonest. I think clearly we're seeing that that is not the case, because the lies are on steroids. And this disinformation campaign that these U.S. attorneys were resigning out of protest because of this whole situation is just another example. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor.com. I recommend that you visit them, check them out. I mean, it has been a tremendous improvement, not just to the overall look and value of our home, but I've noted the number of, frankly, just family interactions that we've had that we probably would not have had otherwise. And I know people would be like, well, now that's silly. I mean, if you really cared about your family, listen, I'm just telling you the truth. And you have patterns in life, and, you get home and you sit down and you may all be in the same room, but you're not really paying attention. But for us in that outdoor living space when the weather's nice, it had just resulted in us sitting around and talking to each other, sometimes for several hours into the evening. And that's family time that we otherwise just would not, as silly as it may seem, we would not have taken advantage of. And so I think that it's such a tremendous benefit in that capacity, as well as, of course, the overall value of your home. Now, that being said, Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, they are the absolute premier in the 417. And so there is a wait list because of that. And so if springtime you're thinking, well, we'll wait until spring to get it, you need to reach out to them now and get that ball rolling, at least in terms of conversation, so you can get in that queue, because the wait, which is totally and completely earned, is well beyond what just your standard folks are going to be able to do for you. HunterHardscapes.com. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. By the way, so these the resignations that were being largely touted coming out of the U.S. Attorney General's office in that district of Minneapolis, which, as has since been noted, every single one of those resignations came well before the shooting ever took place. They were early retirements. They have nothing whatsoever to do with that. Tim Walz was really reaming about one of the resignations in particular, posting yesterday on X of of one of the attorneys. Quote, Joe is a principled public servant who spent more than a decade achieving justice for Minnesotans. U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson he's speaking of. This is a huge loss for our state. It's also the latest sign Trump is pushing nonpartisan career professionals out of the Justice Department, replacing them with sycophants. The problem is, Waltz just last week was reaming on that same attorney for being a lapdog of Donald Trump, saying that he should be fired or resign. The lack of dignity, the lack of shame with these people. Glenn Beck's next. I'll talk with you tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.